What is the Power School of Strategic Development? Well, researcher Henry Mintzberg proposed a 10-part framework for how strategies arise within organizations. He called each of these frameworks schools or schools of thought concerning how these strategic approaches are carried out or how strategy is created or arises again in the organization. Now, one of those schools is the Power School, and it focuses on the effect of power and politics on how strategy is formed. So the study of power with regard to strategy generally seeks to interpret how power and politics together are used to influence or somehow negotiate strategies in pursuit of individuals' specific interests, a process of influence over others. So this constant effort to promote one's own interests through negotiating and trying to influence others is the root of how strategies develop. And pursuant to this, because individuals work in groups together at all different levels of the organization, groups that have the highest level of influence or power over a particular scenario or situation are generally able to promote or achieve their interests above those of other groups at other levels of the organization that have less influence or power. So there are several premises behind the Power School of Strategic Development. First is the core assumption that strategy development is shaped by power and politics. So it's a process inside of the organization or of behavior of the organization in interacting with external people in the environment. So strategy thus emerges from the processes that tend to evolve as part of this jockeying for one's own interest or the power and politics play out there. So oftentimes the strategy takes the form of some type of position that one group takes versus others, or a ploy, something made to achieve something with regard to a plan of action, right? So with this being said, strategy is incorporated in with two approaches, both a micro approach and a macro approach, or a macro form, if you will. The micro form sees power and influence as the contributing factors for strategy, generally through the indirect or indirect persuasive tactics and bargaining between individuals in the firm or between firms themselves. So it's a macro focus there in terms of individual interactions within the organization or the organization's interaction with others in terms of how strategy develops. A more macro focus view of strategy says that the organization itself is continually interacting with the environment to promote its own interests. That is, it's competing out there with others in the marketplace, but also in addition to just competing with competitors in the marketplace, it is simply interacting with all third parties out there, stakeholders of any sort, and by actively interacting with these third parties, controlling activities, cooperating in some way, shape, or form, but basically maneuvering through networks and alliances gives rise to an overall strategic approach. So this is the macro approach and the micro approach together are the factors that give rise to strategy in the organization. So in summary, Mintzberg said that power and influence together affect the formation of strategies both through micro assertions of power and influence within the organization and macro, that is the organization interacting with third parties out there in the environment, and thus the effects of this, the taking of a position or the pursuit of individual interest gives rise to strategy generally as some form of position or ploy.